Welcome to another episode of GSP, the Good Sugar Podcast. I am Ralph Sutton. Marcus Antebi is here as well. Marcus, I'm just going to say this off the top of the show. We have a great guest. I feel that she is so in line with the show. It's not going to be a difficult interview at all, and I kind of want to get into it. Her name is Kathryn Budig. She's got a really good history in working with yoga, and I believe that you two are going to have a real alignment with the way you see the world and the way you see yoga. And I think I can...
It's part of my elaborate plan to brainwash you to do something I want you to do.
That's fine. And by the way,
it's all coming into focus.
When you have relatable people that I can understand and not too hokey, I'm much more willing to accept the message. So I appreciate you finding her. So why don't we just get right into it? Yoga teacher, author. I think she may have given up her podcast. We'll talk about it. She's an editor for Women's Health and has the House of Phoenix. We'll get into all of it. It is Kathryn Budig. How are you, Kathryn?
Ooh, that you just said my last name like a professional.
Well, I am the professional here of the Marcus and I in the broadcast world. I guess that's the thing that I'm known for.
He's the pro. I'm the smart guy.
Yeah, Marcus is known for his hot sauce, apparently, according to you.
Yes, the juice press hot sauce is everything. I actually have had it confiscated in TSA before when I've tried to smuggle it in my carry-on. I've gotten through successfully and not, and I gave them some major shade when they took 4 bottles.
Because it was too big?
Yeah, it was like past the ounce, whatever you're allowed to carry on. And I was like, y'all better use that. You better use it.
Well,
also, the dog sniffed out the cocaine we put in there to get people addicted to it. So that's
okay,
cool. Smart move. It was a smart move that you did that early on, Marcus. That was really smart. Off the top, though, because I noticed the last episode of your podcast was back in like July or June. Does that mean that you stopped doing it or you're just taking a break?
Hiatus. It's just hiatus. It's there's just so much going on. I just launched a new business, and then Kate, my wife, she just got involved with Metal Arc, which is this new big media company, and we love the podcast, but y'all know it's a lot of work, so we just needed to kind of like put on the brakes for a second and then get our brains back, and we'll be back in the fall.
I would say that. I mean, granted, you have a huge following on social media, so it's easier to tell people. But from what I can tell, not that I'm here to consult podcasting, but the worst thing you do is take a break because you just lose everybody. They find another podcast, and there's a million podcasts out there. It's hard to get them back. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
Well, you should also, in a humble way, he has epic experience in the podcast industry. He doesn't just have our crappy little tiny show. He has his own podcast that has 34 billion.
34 billion.
And he has a podcast network studio in New York that has like 130 billion people follow it every week.
I think you might be off.
His voice.
It's a voice. I have a voice and a face for radio. They say it all the time. Yeah. But, all right. So let's get into a couple things. You both are very avid yoga people. I don't know enough about it. Marcus, I know you do, obviously. And there's so many different types of yoga. I'm the neophyte here. I don't know a lot of this. Are you both in the same world of yoga? Like you follow the same teachings? Is that a good way to look at it?
Well, Marcus, are you still doing Ashtanga? Are you ex-Ashtangi, current Ashtangi?
Well,
it sounds like you're making up words, but I'll let it go.
Yes. I try to do all the different styles that are hard and interesting and get me to concentrate and focus. I'm concentrating more on the Bikram series right now for fun. I jump back into the Ashtanga. Sometimes I do my own thing. Sometimes I just walk down the street and breathe.
Yeah.
Other times,
I do that every day, by the way.
I fold up into my belly button and I go into a wormhole into the cosmos. So it just depends on the day of the week.
Totally.
So, Kathryn, you're a loyalist? Okay. Are you a loyalist for Ashtanga? That's what you do? You don't waver?
No. Me? God, no. No.
Hell no.
Hell no.
Hell no.
I started in Ashtanga. So Maty Ezraty, the great Maty Ezraty was my mentor. And her and Chuck Miller trained me at Yogaworks back in the day. So I was trained in the Yogaworks style, but I was in Maty's Mysore room Monday through Friday. And God forbid I had to like go to the dentist or anything. She would just like,
I'm going to ask a stupid question. So very new to yoga. I have a Peloton and I do the yoga classes.
That's yoga.
Well, sure. They have a yoga class. They do. I follow
Sri Satguru Peloton invented that, right?
Yeah. I follow one guy in yoga. His name is Ross Rayburn. He's one of the Peloton instructors.
Ross is great.
And he's the only guy I like because I find that a lot of times they get into positions I cannot do. I like his style, but they don't say any like this is whatever Ashtangas or whatever, they just do yoga. How am I supposed to decipher as a moron what type of yoga I'm doing? Does that make any sense?
Great question. Great question.
It is a great question. And I think if it's something that you're dabbling in, you by no means need to know the lineage or the background or the Sanskrit or anything like that. If it's something that, tickles your fancies, you continue to get into it and you want to learn more about the practice. That's kind of the goal, right? Like you do the physical asana and then the asana awakens something inside of you that sparks this little flame of wanting to learn more. And then you can go down that path. But I'm also of the background where like to each their own. I mean, if you want to just dabble in it, that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I was just looking at it as really exclusively just for a way to pick up yoga chicks and say, hey, I do this,
it works.
To make it look like I know what I'm talking about.
You can also get, you can get yoga diseases. You got to be careful. They run rampant.
By the way, I'm going to quote one thing that I heard you say in an interview, which I feel this way about me and yoga, which is you're only going to ever be a beginner once. And that's I stand by that in every facet of life. You only have one time to learn it as a beginner. So that's where I'm in right now.
And it's a special phase that someday you're going to look back and be like, fuck, that was really great. Why was I complaining the entire time?
I will say this. When I try and get into the pigeon pose, I swear to God, I almost shit my pants. That's how unflexible I am.
That's why pigeons shit on people so much, because they're always in pigeon pose. I wanted to just say something that I think could be helpful in a quick soundbite, which is look at yoga as similar to martial arts. And if you suddenly entered in the world of martial arts, you would see all these different schools and everybody had different teachers. There's different philosophies and lineage. And one might say that not all yoga, not all martial arts are good. They're not all going to take you to a great destination. It's really based on first the people that are supporting it, and then also your ability to like decipher, like, okay, where am I at? What am I learning? So Ashtanga is a system that was, I think we mentioned this before, it was developed by a guy named Antebi Joyce in Mysore, India. And it's a very specific, structured 90 minutes of yoga. You're doing the same postures in the first series. It's almost exactly the same dialogue every time. And the purpose of that is it's really designed to get you to meditate and not concentrate on what posture am I in? Am I working my abs today? You're really, really supposed to just get into the meditation of the flow of the same exact thing over and over and over. And it's not for everybody. It can be boring to some people, and it could be too challenging.
Right. For me, that's why I keep going back to the same beginner, like 20-minute yoga things that Ross Rayburn put up, because I can do them. And each time I'm doing them a little bit better. That's why I also like running, is that when you see the metrics of you improving is what gives you the incentive to keep going.
But you're a metrics guy. I feel like that's such a personality type. Like I could care less about metrics. My wife, she has a Peloton, and God forbid her freaking heart rate monitor doesn't work. I mean, the world will end if she can't see all those little bars and stuff going on while she's doing it. It doesn't count. You know what I mean?
I will make one adjustment to that statement, though. One adjustment is you couldn't care less. If you could care less, you should go ahead and care less. But you meant you couldn't care less.
Shut up.
Thank you, sir.
By the way, he's a yogi. He just doesn't know it.
Oh, that's a nice.
It's actually it's the best kind, actually, because they don't realize how they practice yoga in so many different efforts that they're doing.
You're not in the proselytizing phase yet.
And it's not just, you're not putting labels on stuff and you're not judging it. And so I think that in order for yoga to be taught better in 2021 in the modern world, we have to understand that there's two types of people. There's people that are really interested and attracted to the lineage, where they like to hear Sanskrit words, they like the candles, they like the deities, the pretty colors. It's nice marketing, it's good imagery. And there's people who they find it too spiritual, hokey, or God, approaching the God, or phony. And I think that you have to be aware that there's value to that, because a lot of the stuff that's out there isn't really necessary, and it's not waking up people's minds. It's not liberating them. It's getting them either brainwashed or confused. And so that's where you have tremendous value, because you're not walking around, and I say this with due respect to a lot of great swamis, I know a lot of them, you're walking around as a regular person that has a collection of books, a wife, a haircut,
I think we all have a haircut.
Western concern. No, I don't.
Well, yeah, that's not by choice.
You have a life. You are living yoga, and it's a great role model for people who don't understand what that means.
Well, it's kind of what you were saying earlier about when you're bringing it to like martial arts, for example, and there's all these stuff. You could be doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you could be doing Kempo karate, but I think it's less about all the different styles and more about the teacher. You know, I mean, I could go to jiu-jitsu and despise the teacher and then tell myself I hate jiu-jitsu.
But same thing with when you're in school as a kid. If you're the right science teacher, you love science, and that is what it is. But one thing I noticed on your website for sure, you seem to be, and I think you even mentioned this directly, you are an advocate of, you called practical magic, which I'm not even sure what that means. And there's also a lot of Greek mythology references. Yes. Those are two things that are obviously very passionate in your life, correct?
Absolutely. Storytelling is huge for me. And and lineage is huge for me as well. Like I feel really grateful that I trained in the lineage that I did. And it's something that I would like to see more of in the yoga community, but I also respect the times change. But I think that's also kind of how I feel about mythology and magic too. Like there's just generations of knowledge and things that are getting swept away. And to be able to take something that seems archaic and old and then bring it into a modern world and give it a fresh spin. And I just think that wakes people up and it inspires them and makes them look the world differently and see things differently and feel differently. So that's kind of my practical magic. Is it's not like I'm there stirring my cauldron, which, you know, sometimes I am, but, you know, for the most part, it's just about changing the way people look at things. Completely
out of left field, have you watched the TV show Motherland Fort Salem?
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. I mean, just because we're bringing up magic, I just would think you're going to love it. It's about, imagine if after the witch trials, instead of it ending the way it did, a witch made peace with the American military. And for the last 300 years, witches have been fighting wars for America. It's a fascinating, really well done, really nicely created universe, very female-centric. And it's just, I think it's a great, I've really enjoyed it. 2 seasons. The second season just ended yesterday. I recommend it.
That's where I'm going to be tonight on my sofa.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I will bet you money that you really dig it. That's my answer.
Okay, I'll send you my account info.
You were definitely right that it was out of left field.
Well, not really. We're talking about magic, Marcus, for God's sake.
Okay, sorry. So one of the reasons I asked our booker to go out and get some great yoga people, a lot of different reasons. I think you're very relevant to our discussion. The premise of the show is that over the last year and a half, Ralph has been slowly integrating things that are not necessarily practical self-help things to his lifestyle.
Reluctantly bringing things in, yes.
And he's been making great progress in his life as he reveals on the show. And we have a lot of interesting guests that are in health and wellness. And one of my favorite Ashtangaites, by the way, you might know, Eddie Stern?
Yeah.
Eddie and I
are not personal friends, but I know of the Eddie Stern, yes.
We get together all the time just to have comedy. We just talk comedy. We literally just make fun of philosophy. And it's really fun. So what I want to do on this show is I want to unfold how consciousness works through subtle brainwashing over time, how we keep seeing images and marks of things everywhere we go. And after a repeat number of times, we start to change our pattern based on that thing that we were seeing. And so Ralph right now has finally really gotten himself, when he started the show, he was struggling to get himself back into shape and being consistent with exercise, or he'd have long periods where he was doing great with physical fitness, but then he'd fall off the wagon. Now he's up to running 21 miles a week.
Oh, dang. Nice.
And how many days a week are you doing weight training?
3 days a week training, 3 days a week workout. I'm running 3 days a week training, 3 days of yoga, and then also 3 days of Peloton. So 6 days on, 1 day off.
Oof. And do you look forward to it now?
The running and the working out for sure. The Peloton and the yoga, it feels more like still at this point a chore. They haven't clicked yet, but maybe they will. I'm just sticking with them. Same thing with I am up to 4 minutes of meditation. We started at 2. We're now at 4 every morning. It is an arduous task that I do go through every day. It's not easy, but I don't stop it.
It's like letting the insults come in, meditation.
Ralph, I know this is totally off the wall wild. Can you take your headphones off for 30 seconds?
That's weird, but I'll do it. I might.
Okay, thank you.
You have to do this. Wave at me when you want me to put them back on because I won't hear you.
Okay, all right.
This is fun. Okay.
All right. So what I'm trying to do subtly is I'm trying to show him how the mind and consciousness get brainwashed into doing things, but the brain has to hear it 1,000 times and start to integrate it and think that it had the original idea. So what I want to do with him now is I want to start weaning him off of the insane 21, he's 52 years old, he's 6'6", the 21 miles a week. And I want to start on his own, letting him think that he's moving and gravitating towards more of a mindful practice and yoga. And I'm doing it. I want him in 3 months to say, I'm doing more yoga as if he thought of it himself.
Yes.
And so the one thing I wanted to communicate with you is we'll try to get back into the discussion of too much running isn't sustainable, and give him some tips on how he can find his way into yoga that fits his mentality. Okay, that's it. All right, Ralph.
Done.
All I saw was you not letting our guest talk for 30 seconds straight. That's what I saw.
Sorry. All right. I'm going to be quiet. And you guys talk about
That's what I picked up on, was that you didn't say a word for 30 seconds. Am I right?
Well, okay. So step number 1, Ralph, I feel that, and Ross Rayburn is a friend. He's lovely. I think he's a fantastic teacher. And this is not knocking him, but maybe you don't like yoga because you haven't taken my class yet.
Maybe.
You know?
Who knows? But but here's the thing. Let me say this. I have tried 6 or 7 Peloton yoga. I don't just stick with Ross Rayburn. He is the only one I've enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? So like,
maybe you haven't taken my class yet.
That's true. That's true. But his is free and part of my Peloton class. Part of my Peloton.
That's true. Well, the first 3 classes on my site are free, so you got 3 opportunities.
Is that House of Phoenix? Is that House of Phoenix?
It's like rubbing a lucky genie thing.
Is that the House of Phoenix thing, or is that something else?
House of Phoenix.
Phoenix. Okay. All right, that's fine. I'm more than willing to try. Is there an app for the Fire Stick so that I can log in, or is it on YouTube? It's on the website.
It's hosted through Union, so you can get the Union app and you can check it out.
Fair enough. I'm more than willing to try.
All the information, and I will guide you towards what I think will be good for you.
Okay, fair enough.
I love a confident yogi.
I'm more than willing to try. More than willing. I also will say this, and I'm very inflexible, right? And I do feel in general. And this is, I hate to generalize, but here we go. Usually women are more flexible than men. I would say almost always, right?
Sure, it's common.
So very often when I watch female yogis, I can't even get close to the positions they go in, and it starts to deflate me, if that makes any sense.
And that's part of the practice. Isn't that what's so interesting?
Well, interesting, or you bail, depending on... So me, I bail. I'm like, I can't do any of this. I can't even get close to the posture. So fuck this. I'm going back to Ross.
Do you know the phrase joy gap? Have you heard of that before?
No.
So this is something that I think about all the time, because you talking about like, oh, I go for a 10-mile run or per week. I don't, whatever, how much you're doing at a time. Mm-hmm. I hate running. I hate it. And I hear this with swimmers too, right? Like I will do jujitsu or yoga or something that like makes me work my brain like a puzzle. But if it's just like getting my heart rate up, I go easy. But there's this thing called the joy gap. And it's basically where you're sitting there and you're thinking about like, I want to unroll my yoga mat or I want to go on a run. But you're just programmed. And it's kind of, what you were saying, it's this conditioning that we have. It's through societal conditioning, it's through however you've conditioned yourself for your entire life. I don't want to, this is exhausting, it's going to hurt. I would rather be eating a burrito, whatever your story is. But then you get on the mat or you start the run, and maybe the first 5 minutes, the first 20 minutes, you're still regretting it. It still feels like crap. And then normally, not always, by the time you get past whatever that first hump is, you start to feel, oh, this is good in my body. This is actually, I can feel myself changing. I can feel myself opening. I can feel my heart expanding, pumping, like whatever it is that fires you up. And by the end of it, no matter what, you're like, I'm glad I did that. So it's getting over that joy gap and getting into the experience.
No, let me say clearly.
Thank you for that. I thought that was well said.
I say this all the time. Like I wouldn't even say, only recently after reading the book Atomic Habits did I start saying I will say I am a runner, right? But up until a month ago, which I've been doing it for a little over a year, I would say I don't really like running. I'm doing it because I feel the results, and I like the feeling of when it's over. Like, I love the accomplishment of it, and I listen to educational podcasts when I run, so I feel that I'm helping my brain and my body at the same time, right?
Inside or outside running?
Outside. Always outside. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that feeling afterwards is what I like. Even with yoga, with the Peloton, with things I don't enjoy doing, afterwards it feels great. But what happened with the running was there was a point where, and I wouldn't even say I look forward to it, I just feel like, oh, this is the day that I run. It's officially become a habit, right? Same thing with my trainer, who would tell you all the time, I used to cancel on him at least 2-3 times a month. I never cancel anymore. It's just now, oh, it's Monday at 8 o'clock. I got to go work out. Like, it's not even a thought anymore, where I still feel with the yoga and with the Peloton ride, I have to like force myself. I'm like, oh, come on, you got to go do it. It's time to do that. I feel differently, and I've been doing them all roughly the same amount of time. For whatever reason, those two exercises did not resonate with me yet, and I don't know why. I don't understand why.
Well, I think from the spin perspective, as someone, we have a Peloton too, like I said, and I go through phases where it seems like a good idea and I enjoy it, but ultimately it's not my workout. Like, I don't know. I feel like a little trapped gerbil on that thing. And even if it's an entertaining teacher, and there are some teachers, they make me laugh. It's entertaining. Like, I go because I like the teacher, you know, I'm there because there's someone who's speaking to me or motivating me. But I do think there's something to be said for trying something. And if you know, like deep down, like, I'm just never going to be a spinner, that's okay. Right. And maybe yoga is not for you, but I do side with Marcus, where I think everyone is a yogi, but I truly believe it's about finding the right style and it's about finding the right teacher. And Peloton is great. I'm not knocking Peloton, but it is a very limited experience of what yoga is.
Right. No, I agree. But I've told this story a few times on this podcast.
Wait, can I comment on the...
Go ahead, Marcus.
I'm sorry. I think that what I'm trying to point out to you, Ralph, is that you're getting a tremendous amount of fitness right now in your life, and I want it to be sustainable to your physical body. I don't want you to break down, and I don't want you to get into a situation where if you're injured in some way or it's raining, you start to fall off the regimen that's been giving you a lot of happiness and structure. And so what I think the way to approach yoga for you would be, since we can see that you like hard exercise, that the yoga might just be for you the times of the week where you're doing a more isometric or calisthenic type exercise on a mat, where you're taking a posture, you're really concentrating on firing different muscle groups, balance, stamina, and look at it. You might not be taking hard enough yoga in that regard, even if it's 20 minutes. It might be too mindful for you, where you get bored because you've given so much empty time to think about breathing, and maybe it's too ethereal for you. So maybe you need somebody to take you through a 20-minute yoga modified something that really gives you an opportunity to really just focus first on the present moment of what the body's doing.
All right. I mean, maybe that journey will begin at House of Phoenix. Who knows? I'll tell you this, Kathryn, there was a time I went to some yoga class, and I've told the story before. I walk in, I sit down, the teacher comes in, she puts a bowl in front of herself, she dings it and goes, oh, the whole class goes, oh, whatever. I just got up and walked out. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I can't. So I find it goofy. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on House of Phoenix? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So House of Phoenix, so I've been teaching for, we're closing in on almost 20 years now. And my background is, I'm a Vinyasa flow teacher, background in Ashtanga and Iyengar, a meld. So alignment, I like to keep my students safe. I like to make sure they understand how to do the pose, but I also want them to have the freedom to do them. I want them to experience yoga how it should be felt in their body. And I like to talk, I like to joke, I like to make people laugh. And I find that it's a sneaky way to get people to do things that are difficult, because if they look at it, like, for example, you would go into the class and I totally get it. People are oming, you got the Tibetan bowl. You're like, I don't fucking know. Like, I went into Shiva Ray's class one time and she's like, we're going to trance dance. And I was like, hell no, And I'm sure if I just stayed and I'd gotten into the trance dance, it would have been great. But my reaction was like, this isn't for me. This is, I can't just like drop into that phase. Mm-hmm. But I think that are you doing like a little Shiva dance over there, Marcus?
No, I was doing Kundalini. Can you imagine him in a Kundalini class?
It looks like you were doing the safety dance, actually.
No, tell him what Kundalini is like.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I love Kundalini. It's a love-hate relationship. Kundalini.
We got to take him to one.
Yeah, you would hate this. Basically, imagine, for example, like putting your hands on your shoulders and twisting. I'm also in a chair that swivels. This is super fun right now for me. So you twist and you do it on your breath. So it's
for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How does it seem like yoga though?
It's going to break off.
It's incredible yoga.
4 minutes, but you get high as a kite. It is the most stoned you will ever feel, and you will be stoned for like 24 hours. So it's
unless you're resisting.
True.
You have to. What it is, Ralph, is that first of all, it was Kundalini as a system was made popularized by a great yogi, and there's a whole movement around it. It's a system of lifestyle and thinking, but the classes are programmed towards astrological events, what they're going to be teaching that day. And there's things that you might do, like you might put your hands up, make your hands shaped like a V, and you got to go. And the teacher goes, ha, 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 ha. And you're doing it for 19 minutes. And what happens is you literally just leave because you just can't handle it. Or you have to focus, because if you don't focus, there's just no way that you can stay in it.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without laughing. So I don't know how that would happen. I don't know.
You go through that too. I did a 2-day retreat. I went right through that. The first day was just me. I had to dip out of the room and sit in the yard, and I was laughing by myself for like 10 minutes. It was so ridiculous what they were doing. But then I started to understand it's a system that works for a certain type of person. It has the power to get a person prepared to sit and meditate, which is really the purpose of the physical yoga in the first place, was to prepare you for a meditation. It's not just exercise and fitness. It's supposed to be able to help us get prepared to be able to concentrate and focus.
Okay, fine. I'm going to ask you both this question.
Wait. Comment on that.
Well, I think as annoying as meditation is for someone who's new to meditation, and as someone who's not new to meditation, I still find meditation annoying. But we're all creatives here. I get my best ideas during meditation. When I come out of what I've been doing with House of Phoenix, every Friday, we do a 15-minute live meditation together. I lead them, and then for 5 minutes, we free write. And if you've ever done free writing before, it's like it could be total gibberish, right? You think of the first word and you just go and you spill it out onto the page. And I'm not saying like emotional release or anything like that, but it's just, as a writer, it is one of the best ways for me to get clear and get my ideas.
Well, what I can say this, again, I always like the practical that helps me express ideas more easily. But it has been proven all the most brilliant ideas, especially throughout history with like Einstein or Newton or whatever, they didn't have their minds in their phones 24/7 or on the internet or unlimited TV shows. And the best ideas came from them being alone by themselves, focusing on nothing but thought. And that's where the restructuring of the universe comes from, was because they had nothing else to occupy their mind. So I get that.
But there's a condition there. There's a condition you have to be able to separate the two differences. I'm a avid study of Einstein and a lot of physicists, and I'm fascinated by those people.
Steve Einstein is who you study.
Steve is great. Steve, he was the delivery guy. There's a difference between meditation and obsession.
No, of course. That's not,
obsession can lead to the same conclusion if you're lucky, but one could cause the suffering of the mind. The other one should help to induce the liberation of the mind if it's practiced right.
Fair enough. So now this was a question from last week that I wanted to ask both of you, because we didn't get to it fully, and it's like I think it being that you're both yogis or yoga.
I'm not. Don't call me a yogi. Okay?
Yoga enthusiasts. How about that?
Even, I like that.
Okay. We talked a little bit about. I'm sure you both can have insight on this, on the importance of breathing through the nose versus breathing through the mouth, and I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on why that matters, or if you think it matters. I'd be curious I'd rather Kathryn go first, Marcus, to not jade your response. So I know, let's hear what she says. Because I feel like She doesn't even care that you breathe through the nose. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's go.
I feel like, Marcus, did you start doing alternate nostril breathing?
I was just goofing around. I was trying to think of a witty line to say, look, it's obvious Trump supporters breathe through their mouth and the liberals breathe through their nose. It's just really obvious.
Nobody likes a mouth breather. You know what I'm saying?
Great T-shirt. Great T-shirt.
Nobody likes that. Well, so breathing in and out of the nose is called ujjayi. So it's called victorious breathing. And to be completely fair, I don't know what the scientific or what the historic reasons for breathing out of the nose. I actually really love breathing in through my nose and exhaling out through my mouth. But it also depends on what you're trying to achieve when you're breathing. Are you trying to release? Are you trying to focus? Are you trying to balance? And so it's called pranayama. That's the study of the breath, all the different ways you can use it. So, and this is where I'm really lax as a teacher. A lot of teachers will be very strict, like inhale before you jump, exhale while you're in the air. I'm like, or work with, maybe the other way works better for your body. And I'm very relaxed with that. The only thing that I don't like, and Maty taught me this, and I have to agree with her, when people breathe in and out through the nose, people often get really into it and they get, I don't know, I think it's a little theatric and it's like.
I have nostril clamps. I like to flare my nose to the point where they rip in the class.
You look like
I've seen they tape their mouths shut when they go to sleep, so they breathe through their nose all night, which seems insane to me.
Lots of stuff out there.
And also, before your answer, Marcus, I will say that I understand breathing in through the nose. The nose has little membranes in there to filter shit out, so that makes sense to me. You're breathing in better air for you, but out. Why would you want to filter anything else through your nose? Get it out of your mouth. To me, that makes sense. But Marcus, why don't you elaborate a little bit?
The most important nutrient for the brain is oxygen. So let's just all agree that you got to get it into your system, whether it's through your nose, your ears, your mouth. Get it into your body really quick, because in 60 seconds, you're going to be unconscious. And in 30 more seconds, you're going to be dead.
No, not 90 seconds.
Diver.
Yeah. I think you could go up to 10 minutes, I think.
There's always an exception. We have to understand why specificity has value in a mindful meditation practice. For some people, their mind goes all over the place, and if you let them deviate from any instruction, they're going to be in outer space.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, too much structure feels like pain, and so they need more liberal teaching. Like the teacher might say, and if I might invite you now, we're going to go do downward dog, but only if you'd like to. Okay, that's very compassionate. In other classes, it's downward dog, knuckles straight, fingers pointing, back up, breathe in, breathe. It's like a military class.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, that amount of instruction keeps them focused on what they're doing. They don't drift away.
Yeah.
So both things have a value. Breathing, someone telling you breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the nose. It's another specific instruction designed first and foremost to keep you focused. You can't scientifically say it's 100 times better than the other way of doing it. So the specificity is actually the value. Other yoga teachers will say that the nostrils are a direct path to the lungs because of how it travels. Some people will say the filtration system, you're getting better air. Other people say in a hot classroom, breathing through the mouth will heat up the breath. It makes you feel hotter. So to be honest with you, I've never heard 5 yoga teachers agree and give me a precise answer to it.
I mean, that's the problem with the world we live in these days anyway, with everything. That's why there's so many people unwilling to get a vaccine. That's why there's so many people that think COVID's not real or that think whatever, because there's so much misinformation. You can find whatever your argument is. Wow, we upset Marcus. He turned off his camera.
Sorry.
I gotta do something personal. Okay.
You can find whatever you want, whatever nonsensical argument you believe in. There are people who have that same belief system online. Like I just got into an argument with someone yesterday because I showed that there's a group of people, forget about flat earth. There are people that think we live on a donut-shaped earth. And there's thousands of people that are believing it. And it's hard to disprove unless you fly to space. Because their answer is
that they're all sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, they're sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. So yeah, that's the problem when there's not enough uniformity. For me, it gets harder to follow whatever that is. That's what I mean by all that.
I think I agree with Marcus, though. Plain and simple, breathing in and out of the nose, it's so specific that when you sit down and you know, okay, it's yoga time, I'm going to change the way I'm breathing and I'm going to start breathing in and out of my nose. It does immediately tell your brain, I'm here now.
Okay, fair enough. I think I most often do breathe through my nose in and out. I'm trying to think about it. But when I'm running, I don't.
Right? I think most of us, when our heart rate starts to get up, you tend to breathe through the nose and then out through the mouth, which again is a good release. But I do agree that it's a shift of gears, and it gives you a foundation to hold on regardless of how difficult everything gets around you. And if you are in something incredibly challenging, but you can maintain calm breathing, even if every muscle in your body is trembling, I think that's the mastery of something.
Right. And I've learned a lot that when you're in an uncomfortable situation, by trying to bring your breath to normalcy, it'll help with any sort of pain or any sort of uncomfort. I tend to breathe in through my nose and out through my anus. Let's continue with anything else you want to plug. We don't want to keep you on for too long. It's been 40 minutes already.
Oh, sorry. I was just going off the anus joke. That one passion burned.
Everything was going great until he hit rock bottom. Rock bottom.
That one going. No, I mean, the big thing for me right now is House of Phoenix is just building this new home. It's so exciting to have full autonomy.
Right. And for those that are in the audio, it's house spelled H-A-U-S.
Yes,
just so they know.
H-A-U-S. It's kind of leaning into the more of the mythology and the magic and
the German. I think that's how you spell house in German, if I'm not mistaken.
It is indeed. Yeah, it is.
Look at me.
Plus, it's a four-letter word, better for branding.
Oh, yes. And you know what else I found out? That the double O is very good for branding. Like Goop. G-O-O. That double O is so sexy. Yes.
Or Zoom.
I looked at your social media and I really enjoyed your authenticity, and I could see that you were an awoke, enlightened person, and I'm very grateful that you came on the show. And I don't know, it's just really happy that I just keep seeing more and more people who teach yoga in such a nice way that's so approachable. And that means that, we might get some of this plastic out of the ocean and we might end starvation and famine. Well, it's how it starts. It's how it starts, my friend.
It's a catalyst.
People are yoga, so we might as well probably going to meet aliens next week. And it just seems like a big leap. Let's spell it. It's KATHRYNBUDIG, and that's on the Instagrams as well if you wanted to go there. And again, it's House of Phoenix. Last question: is it true, and is it still true, that your favorite movie is Clue? Because that was not a very good movie.
Whoa, come at me. Yes, I love Clue. And I just rewatched it a couple months ago. That's how dedicated I am.
It's fine. It's enjoyable.
Who's in it?
Christopher Guest. It's hilarious.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
And Madeline Kahn. Come on, Madeline Kahn.
Madeline Kahn.
But for favorite movie, come on. Favorite,
Young
maybe it's a good
Saddles.
movie.
Yes, speaking my language.
You know what? If you're
not allowed to mention other movies she's in, because I'd say Young Frankenstein's one of my favorite movies. Saddles. I just wouldn't go to Clue.
If you're a big fan of Christopher Guest, who did Spinal Tap and the couple other ones that were great,
he's also a cast member of an SNL for a little while.
If you're a fan of Christopher Guest, you got to love it. You got to watch his movies. You got to love it.
It's also a movie that I grew up on, that I used to watch all the time. So it has sentimental value, but I think it withholds the test of time, and I just think it's a great movie.
I'm going to give you guys a little bit of parting trivia on Christopher Guest. Why not? I brought up other nonsense. So I'm older than all of you. Well, not Mark's a little older than me, but I'm 51. There used to be a show called Laverne and Shirley, and there were these Lenny and Squiggy were on Laverne and Shirley. And they did an album that got so popular, they played on American Bandstand as Lenny and the Squig Tones is what it was called. And their backup band was Spinal Tap, which is crazy. And it was before Spinal Tap was Spinal Tap. And they asked Christopher Guest his name, and he said his name from Spinal Tap. I forgot what his name was in the movie, but he said, Nigel Tufnell, and he said that was his name, and Spinal Tap wasn't a thing yet. So it's fascinating to watch that, because that was like the birth of Spinal Tap was through Lenny and Squiggy. Just wanted to get that out there, a little bit of Christopher Guest.
Side knowledge.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Kathryn, do you know yoga CPR?
Like breathing Ujjayi breath into someone's nostrils?
how to give CPR to somebody that is dying in a yoga class. That's all it is.
Oh, okay. That's not
Well,
funny.
I was wondering, I'm looking for something. I need somebody that's very, very medically sound, very knowledgeable on all aspects of the body. In case we have an emergency with Ralph, can we call you back to the show?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would be honored to be your yoga CPR person.
You're going to get a phone call and say, Ralph's leg is stuck
Ralph's at it.
behind
I'll
his
be
head.
like, oh,
What do
shit.
we do?
Okay.
And with regards to your background, Kathryn, we get it. You read.
What? What are you talking about? Oh, you mean
She reads everything.
Odyssey? What?
We get it. We get it.
My wife and my great yogi wife and my little 4-month-old baby
hello.
just came to the set.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn. Let's wrap up, Marcus, as well. You can follow me everywhere at I Am Ralph Sutton. My other podcast, The SDR Show, comes out every Wednesday and every Saturday. We do it live on Gas Digital. Thank you so much. Marcus never has anything to plug, so I won't even ask him. And we'll see you next week on the Good Sugar Podcast.